guys, so you know from what I've said in previous videos, I am not a huge proponent of using the grid to get your outlines accurate. However, there are a couple of instances where I find it to be really useful. So say you want to draw something and make it really big for a painting or for a school poster or some sort of protest sign. Or maybe you have a school assignment and you want to draw something and make it really teeny so that it fits in, like a lot of times I see handouts where there's like a small little box on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, and it's really hard to draw that small, and you might want to do a practice version, draw it a little bit bigger and then scale it down. So I'm going to teach you in this video how to use the grid to scale your drawings larger or to scale them smaller. So let's take a look down at the page and I'll show you a couple of examples and I'll talk you through how to do this. Okay, so what I've got here is my grid and I know it's a little bit shiny, but I use these happen to come from Office Depot, these plastic sleeves that you can put a photocopy in, and that way you can make your grid a different size. If you want to, you can make it smaller, you can make it larger. You can even take, like I used a Sharpie to make this grid, but if you just take like hand sanitizer alcohol spray, the Sharpie will come off. So it's an inexpensive, effective way, and you can see a video here, actually it's gonna be over here, on how to make your own grid. So I know it's a little bit shiny, but when I put my photograph of this mug in here, then I have my image gridded off and I don't ruin the photocopy. So if I need that to look at detail, it's kind of nice to have it separated. Okay, so what I did here was I took my large ruler and I did 2-inch grids this way, vertical lines, and you can see that over here this is just a 1-inch that's left, and then I rotated it and I did 2 inches across, and what's left here is just a 1/2 inch. And so what I want to do is reduce the scale of that. So you can see that what I did then was I did 1 inch, and you can see, let's see, I'll flip the ruler so you can actually see the numbers. Let me get something to point with too. So here I did 1 inch, 2 inch, 3, 4, 5, and then a 1/2, because that was a 1-inch remainder section here. So that was 1 inch. 1/2 of that is 1/2 inch. And then when I rotated it, I did 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inches. And then this one, I actually think I miscalculated. This one was a 1/2 inch, so I should have done 1/4 inch. And instead I did about, I can't even count here, but I did it a little bit larger. So I made a mistake there. I could fix that error, but it doesn't impact the area that I'm drawing in this time. So then I was able to look at the shape, and actually, I should have gotten a Sharpie or an Expo marker to draw on this, but I can look at this shape and copy it in the same placement on the grid. You can see the line goes down the grid line here, so it goes down the grid line here, curves around. This gap here is relationship. It's similar. So think of it like, you kind of have to think of it like it's a ratio. So this little gap here is narrower than this gap because I'm shrinking everything down. So the scale is going to be, the proportion will be in relationship, but the actual size measurement won't be the same. And then you can see I looked at where the top and the bottom of the handle fall against the grid. And then let me make sure you guys can see that. And then where the bottom of the handle falls against the grid, place that. And then I was able to place a couple of marker spots here so that I could get the curve in correct. So that's scaling it down. Okay, so let's take a look at the large scale where I'm scaling everything up. So remember on my original grid, these are 2 by 2 inches. What I'm going to do in this case is make it 3 by 3 inches, and that was about as large as I could fit on this paper. If you have a larger poster or you know, big project that you want to work on, then you can always make it a larger, like say you're doing a mural on a wall, you could grid and scale it up. Instead of 2 by 2 inches, you can make it by 2 by 2 feet. So you could, there's really no end to how large or how small. Well, there probably is an end because who has paper bigger? But you can make it larger if you wanted to. I just did, instead of 2 by 2, I did 3 by 3. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the scale is just slightly larger, increased by half. So you can see then I did the same thing where I kind of watched where does this beginning point of the mug start, and I marked it here. Where does it end? Where does this curve start to come into play? And I look at this section here on the grid. And so then I'm just copying the same elements in the same locations, but the scale is larger. So again, I think it's really important that once you do an outline, that then you get rid of the grid. So you can watch my video on how to make a copy, and you could take this image that you've drawn and then make a copy of it on a fresh sheet of paper so that it doesn't have the grid on it at all. And then when you're shading in, I think it's really important to not look at the grid. But for scaling your image larger or smaller, especially for a school project, because I know you guys have a ton of homework and you know, there's only so much time in the day. I think the grid can be really helpful for scaling larger or smaller. So I hope that helps you guys out. Make sure you watch some of these other videos, how to make a copy and how to make your grid, and let me know if you have any questions down below.